What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This week we got Lerone Murphy taking on Josh Emmett, UFC Fight Night at the Apex. We're going to keep these full card predictions short and sweet. Pretty weak card overall, but we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Our first fight on the card, we have Martin Budai versus Uran Satılbadiev. Uran is 9-0. He's Kyrgyzstani. He looks like Miktabek Oralbai. Looks like he has those Genghis Khan genetics. So I'm going to pick him to win via decision. I don't think Martin Budai is that good. Victor Henry versus Pedro Falcao. Falcao did lose his UFC debut. Looked all right. Victor Henry, he's been around a while. Decent kickboxing on the feet. Did lose by submission last time out to Charles Jourdain. Pedro Falcao does have a good submission game. So I'm going to pick Pedro Falcao to win by submission. Give me the underdog by sub. Our next fight on the card, we have Rhys McKee versus Daniel Frunza. Daniel Frunza, he's been around. He fought on the LFA. Looked decent on the Contender Series. Got himself a nice little knockout. Rhys McKee, he's been able to have success on the regional scene. Hasn't had success in the UFC. Lost to Chimaev, Angelusa, Chidi and Njokuani. He's a decent, well-rounded fighter, but I just don't think he's UFC level. Give me Daniel Frunza to get a round 2 TKO here. He does have decent power in his hands, so I'll pick him to win by knockout. Our next fight on the card, we have Davy Grant versus Daniel Santos. Daniel Santos, training out of Shoot to Box, kind of like a mini Charles Oliveira. He had a nice little comeback win over John Castaneda, but I really just don't rate John Castaneda whatsoever. Davy Grant, crafty vet, he's been in there with a lot of really good fighters in the bantamweight division. Adrian Yanez, Daniel Marcos, Stained, Jonathan Martinez. Had a nice little win last time out versus Brad Tavares. Really good volume striking, really crafty, unorthodox. Give me Davy Grant to get a crafty vet British decision here over Daniel Santos. Our next fight on the card, we got Robert Valentin versus Torres Finney. Robert Valentin, he was a really interesting character on the Tough season. Got a really nice elbow knockout, but did lose to, I forget the guy's name, but he got out-grappled and TKO'd on the ground. Decent striking on the feet. He's an unorthodox individual in terms of his out-of-the-cage activities. But I think Torres Finney, who's an absolute beast, used to play football, literally built like a refrigerator. He's not that good. He has questionable cardio, but he's got a solid takedown. He can slam motherfuckers on their head. He's got big power with his ground and pound. Give me Torres Finney to get it done by round 1 ground and pound TKO. Give me the big man. Our next fight on the card, we got Luis Gurul versus Ode Osborne. Ode Osborne, he's been a here and there fighter in the UFC. Has a notable win over Charles Johnson, but, did lose last time to Lazy Boy Rodriguez, so that's not a great look considering Rodriguez lost his last fight. Has some skill, he did get out grappled as well by Asu Amabayev, got subbed up there. So, he's just really not stand out anywhere. He's decently athletic, a little bit quick, and, he's been around. He has a decent amount of UFC experience, but Luis Gurul, 10-0, undefeated fighter here. He's looked really good on the regional scene. He's had 5 rounders on the regional scene, and on the Dana White Contender Series, stepped up on short notice. The guy has incredible cardio on short notice, went a hard 3 rounds against Nick Piccinini. Nick Piccinini, very high-level wrestler. He did very well with defending a lot of the grappling attacks from Nick Piccinini, tuned him up on the feet. He's like an aggressive Sean Strickland. I think he gets the job done with absolute ease. I'll pick Luis Gurul by round 3 TKO against the fence. Our next fight on the card, we got Brad Tavares versus GM3, the GOAT. Brad Tavares, look, his last win that we can remember was against the ghost of Chris Weidman. He's lost every other fight, against the Iron Turtle, RoboCop. Really just hasn't looked that great recently. GM3, he's gotten some crafty subs over a lot of people. He has the record for submissions in the middleweight division. Very, very good submission artist. He's very good at coming back and getting a sub. You look at his win versus Edmund Shabazian. Had a nice submission over Brian Barberena not too long ago. Did lose to Rainer de Ritter last time out, but showed a good version of himself. Give me GM3 by sub. Death, taxes, and GM3 by sub. He's getting it done. Give me GM3 by a second round rear naked choke. Our next fight on the card, we have Cortavius Romeus versus Chang Ho Lee. Both of these guys, they don't have a lot of experience on the UFC platform. Romeus, he was able to win on the Contender Series, did lose on the Contender Series before though, lost in his UFC debut versus Gaston Bolaños. And Chang Ho Lee, he's a decent, well-rounded fighter out of South Korea, but give me Romeus. I think he's just a little bit more vicious. I think he's coming in here with a grittiness to win, and he low-key looks like a crash out, so I'm going to take Romeus, not thinking too deeply into that one. Our next fight on the card, we have Joanderson Brito versus Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini, he's a good fighter, really good grappler, good submission win last time out against Jonathan Pierce. And, we know about the deal with Pat Sabatini. He's a really undersized 145er. I mean, you saw the height and stature difference in his fight with Diego Lopez. Got his head popped around like a pinball in that fight, got knocked out. I think we're going to see something pretty similar here against Brito. Yeah, Brito has lost to long, rangy strikers by decision who can keep it at distance, but against a stocky grappler that's going to try and box in the pocket, take him down, and find a submission, that's like the perfect opponent for Joanderson Brito, because he's just an absolute dog, super aggressive, tons of power. He's good on the ground. He has good submissions in his own right. I think he gets the job done here by TKO in round 2 over Pat Sabatini. You look at Joanderson Brito, he's a really opportunistic fighter. His fight versus Lucas Alexander, who's a very good striker, hopped on the back, got a really good submission there. He was able to get a good TKO over Pierce as well. And, you look at his fight versus William Gomis, who's a high-level guy in his own right. Last time out, did take the split decision loss, but a lot of people thought he won that fight. I think he's still one of the dark horses in the 145-pound division, so I'm going to take him to win by round 2 TKO over Pat Sabatini. Our next fight on the card, we have Josh Emmett, and also Pat Sabatini got knocked out by Damon Jackson, so I think Joanderson Brito is going to get that TKO. All right, we move on to the main event of the evening, the real selling point of this card. We have Lerone Murphy versus Josh Emmett. I'm going to be taking Lerone Murphy by decision, a British decision. He's the younger fighter. He's looked very good in his last couple of fights. His win over Gabriel Santos is aging really well. I kind of underestimated him leading into his Barboza fight because I wasn't impressed with his Culibao performance, but nonetheless, I think he's getting the job done here. Showed a really good version of himself for 5 rounds against Barboza. The hands looked good, implemented some wrestling. He's a well-rounded fighter. Did get knocked down by Dan Ige in his last fight, which isn't a good look when you're about to fight a nasty power puncher like Josh Emmett, but he was able to fight back, was able to grit down on the mouthpiece and win the last 2 rounds. Got the job done there by decision, showed some toughness, showed the ability to fight through adversity. He also did get dropped in, I believe, his UFC debut and fought back to be able to get a split decision win there. So Lerone Murphy, he showed heart before. He's a good technical fighter. His boxing has improved. He's younger, quicker. He's going to have the range advantage here. Can mix in the takedowns pretty good as well. I think Lerone Murphy is a solid fighter here in the 145-pound division. I think a guy like Movzar or Volk would beat him, but I could see him beating a guy like Diego Lopez or, Yair Rodriguez, a lot of the higher-up guys in the 145-pound division. I don't know if he'd fight Arnold Allen, but that would also be a good fight. Josh Emmett, we know the deal with Josh Emmett. Big, meaty hooks, huge power over the top. He had wins over Danny Ige, Calvin Kattar not too long ago. Did go on a 2-fight losing skid where he did get finished up pretty brutally by Yair Rodriguez and Ilia Topuria, but bounced back with a nasty seizure-inducing TKO over Bryce Mitchell. Then took a huge layoff, and now he's back in the main event. So I think that his cardio might be a little bit decreased here, considering he's had a lot of time off. It's a 5-rounder. If he doesn't land the big bomb, Murphy's probably going to be a little bit sharper. Like I said, Murphy has shown durability issues, and getting touched on the chin has been an issue for him as recently as his last fight. So Josh Emmett, he's live for the TKO, but I'm very confident Lerone Murphy gets the job done here via decision. Josh Emmett, he's really one-dimensional. You can kind of predict what he's going to do. He doesn't really implement the grappling too much. And I think once you get past the first or second round with a guy that just really bites down, tries to land the big bomb over the top, maybe the left hook behind it, I think Lerone Murphy can handle that. I think he's going to get the job done by decision. So, yeah, tried to get through this one a little bit quicker. Thank you guys for watching the video all the way through. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. That means a lot to me, and have a good rest of your day.